The Greek War of Independence, a tale of heroism, tragedy, and ultimately triumph. This is part 10 of our series on the Crusades through the Middle Ages, and today we're looking at how ancient Greece came back from the dead. To understand the Greek War of Independence, we have to go back a few centuries. After the fall of Constantinople in 1453, to the armies of the Ottoman Sultan Mehmed the Conqueror. Much of the Greek world came under the control of the Ottomans. For centuries, the Greeks lived as a subject people, paying heavy taxes and enduring discrimination. Yet, they were allowed to keep their Orthodox Church, which became a guardian of culture and faith. But by the late 18th century, the desire for independence was rekindled due to three factors. First, the spread of Enlightenment ideas about liberty and national sovereignty. Second, the French Revolution and the Napoleonic War showed that even empires could be challenged. And third, the rise of a wealthy Greek merchant class, especially in the Mediterranean and Russia, who financed nationalist movements. Then came the outbreak of revolution in March of 1821, the secret organization called Filiki Eteria, or Society of Friends, had been founded back in 1814 to plan for this moment. They coordinated the first uprisings across the Balkans. The revolution started in the Peloponnese. Their leaders like Theodoros Kolokotronis, who you'll hear more about later, raised their arms against the Ottoman garrisons. On March 25, 1821, Bishop Germanos of Petros famously blessed the revolutionary banner at the monastery of Agia Lavra. This moment is now celebrated as the start of the revolution. Revolts quickly spread to central Greece and the Aegean Islands, turning the struggle into a nationwide movement. The war was marked by both heroism and tragedy. On the seas, naval heroes like Laskarina, Bouboulina, and Konstantinos Canaris led daring raids against the Ottoman navy. One of their most daring feats was the destruction of the Ottoman battleship the Sultan, speared by a Greek fireship in 1822 on land. Figures like Kolokotronis and Georgios Karaiskakis became symbols of resistance, leading guerrilla tactics that frustrated the Ottomans' larger force. But there was a terrible cost. Among the most tragic episodes, the Massacre of Chios in 1822, when tens of thousands of Greek civilians were slaughtered or enslaved by Ottoman forces. Such atrocities shocked the rest of Europe. Which brings us to our third point, Philhellenism. The plight of the Greeks struck a deep chord in Europe, where admiration for classical Greece was already strong. Intellectuals, artists, and politicians across the continent rallied to the cause. The poet Lord Byron, for instance, traveled to Missolonghi in 1823 to join the fight, and he personally funded troops. He died there in 1824 from a disease, perhaps malaria. But his death inspired many more to take up the Greek cause. The French painter Eugène Delacroix captured the horror of the conflict in his famous painting, The Massacre at Chios. But it wasn't just sentiment that made an impact. The question of how to deal with the Greek revolt was debated by the great powers. Britain, France, and Russia, who all had interests in the region. Despite their sympathy, none wanted to risk a major war with the Ottomans. But as the conflict dragged on, these powers did intervene. In 1827, Britain, France, and Russia formed an alliance to protect the Greeks. At the Battle of Navarino, on October 1827, the Allied fleet decisively defeated the Ottoman Egyptian navy. This turned the tide in favor of the Greeks and effectively ended Ottoman control over the Aegean. Russia's victories in the concurrent Russo-Turkish War of 1828 to 1829 further weakened the Ottomans and pushed them toward accepting the independence of Greece. Finally, in 1830, the London Protocol officially recognized Greece as an independent state. At first, the borders were modest, including the Peloponnese, Central Greece, and some islands. But in 1832, the Kingdom of Greece was formally established with Prince Otto of Bavaria as the first monarch. The Greek War of Independence was more than a local conflict. It was a pivotal moment in the 19th century when many nations were seeking self-determination. The revolution succeeded in part because it tapped into powerful forces: Enlightenment ideals, the weakness of the Ottoman Empire, and growing nationalism across Europe. The war also helped set the stage for other nationalist movements across the continent. On March 25th, the anniversary of the revolution, modern Greece celebrates its Independence Day. It's a day of national unity and pride, a reminder of the courage and sacrifice of those who fought for freedom.